Hello, my name is Csaba La'Da, and I'm reader in ancient history, papyrology and Egyptology in the Department of Classical and Archaeological Studies of the University of Kent at Canterbury. I love the ancient world not just because it is absolutely fascinating, but also because it teaches us a great deal about our modern world. We are living in difficult times due to the sudden coronavirus outbreak. This reminded me of a very sad episode in the history of classical Greece, the outbreak of the Plague at Athens in 430 BC, in the second year of the Peloponnesian War, on which I happened to teach a module this term. In 430 BC, a huge Peloponnesian army invaded Attica for the second time in this war and was devastating the countryside, while the Athenians, at Pericles' advice, adopted a defensive strategy, evacuating the population of Attica to Athens and staying behind the city's walls. Suddenly, a devastating infectious disease called Plague by Thucydides, the contemporary chronicler of events, broke out, killing perhaps up to a third of Athens' population. This is how Thucydides describes this terrible event. Previously, attacks of the plague had been reported from many other places in the neighborhood of Lemnos and elsewhere, but there was no record of the disease being so virulent anywhere else or causing so many deaths as it did in Athens. At the beginning, the doctors were quite incapable of treating the disease because of their ignorance of the right methods. In fact, mortality among the doctors was the highest of all, since they came more frequently in contact with the sick. Nor was any other human art or science of any help at all. And a little later, as for a recognized method of treatment, it would be true to say that no such thing existed. The plague originated, so they say, in Ethiopia in Upper Egypt, and spread from there into Egypt itself and Libya, and much of the territory of the king of Persia. In the city of Athens it appeared suddenly. The most terrible thing of all was the despair into which people fell when they realized that they had caught the plague, for they would immediately adopt an attitude of utter hopelessness. For the catastrophe was so overwhelming that men, not knowing what would happen next to them, became indifferent to every rule of religion or of law. In other respects also, Athens owed to the plague the beginnings of a state of unprecedented lawlessness. As for what is called honor, no one showed himself willing to abide by its laws. So doubtful was it whether one would survive to enjoy the name for it. Was the current coronavirus outbreak is mercifully not as devastating as the plague was at Athens in 430 BC, I think we can still recognize many of the features Thucydides describes, especially about how human norms of behavior tend to break down in times of crisis. Think, for example, of the rampant panic buying that we experience today, and people almost fighting over food and loo paper in shops. Thus, studying ancient history teaches us an awful lot also about our own modern world.